Hello and welcome to another episode of On the Sofa. I'm Amy and I'm part of the marketing team here at ScotlandShop. Normally I can be found filling our website, social media and tartan blog with lots of tartan inspiration. Tonight I'm joined by Lauren and we are going to be taking a closer look at what the tartan team love most about living in Scotland.
Hi, I'm Lauren and I work in the marketing team alongside Amy. This is actually my first time on the Scotland Shop sofa and I'm very excited to hear what everyone has to say. We'll also be hearing some very romantic Scottish love stories that our amazing customers have sent us.
February is a month traditionally filled with love, so we were delighted to take an opportunity to discover what people love about Scotland. Whether you've never been to Scotland before, visited a few times, or are lucky enough to live here, everyone has a love story to tell about this wonderful country, and we are here to tell the story.
As well as it being February, 2022 is also the year of stories, as created by Visit Scotland, with the aim of celebrating stories inspired by, written or created in Scotland. The organisation believes that stories are a vital part of Scotland's culture. They are what give communities a sense of place, history and belonging, and we are so pleased that we're able to contribute our staff and customer stories to this amazing campaign.
My favourite thing about Scotland is that no matter where you live or visit, there is always somewhere different to explore. Whether it's an abandoned castle just up the road from your house or driving 2 hours to climb one of the Munros. I'm yet to climb my first Munro, but I have quite a few of them on my bucket list and I can't wait to start exploring. We're extremely fortunate to have a range of beautiful walks and climbs in Scotland. The Scottish Munros attract people from all over the world, and for good reason too. Did you know that there are a total of 282 Munros in Scotland? Over 6,000 people have climbed them all so far, completing what is known as Munro bagging. Over the years, I have been lucky enough to explore some of the most beautiful places this country has to offer, from the bonny Scottish borders where I grew up to Aberdeen where I went to university. But my most favourite place I've visited has to be the Isle of Skye. The landscape, wildlife, and all the lovely people were all reasons why I'll definitely be heading back, and I would recommend anyone visiting Scotland to take a trip over the sea to Skye. Oh, and don't forget the famous Isle of Skye tartan, a beautiful blend of purple, green, and brown, which represents the landscape and scenery on Skye perfectly.
Scotland is filled with beautiful landmarks up and down the country. Whether you're looking to take a trip to see one of Scotland's many famous castles or you're in search of one of the country's best beaches, you're guaranteed to find somewhere beautiful to visit. What I love about Scotland is the unique customs and traditions and the fascinating history tied to these. We're so rich in culture, from our tartan and kilts to common ridings and clans. As a nation, we're so proud of the things that make us different, including Iron Brew.
Love an iron We could keep going on with what we love most about this amazing country, but let's explore some of the reasons why the Scotland Shop staff love Scotland. You can learn more about the Scotland Shop team over on our team page.
I think what I love most about Scotland is that we're proud to be a bit different. Our national animal is the unicorn. Our men are known for wearing kilts. We don't just eat meat, we eat haggis. And our cows are hairy Highlanders, just like Hamish here. We've got so many amazing clans and stories, castles, everything that we can share, which I don't know that any other country has that same depth of history. I'm now here in Albany, upstate New York, and every day I get the chance to share all of the amazing stories about our history and culture with everyone over here. And nowhere else do I know is anyone so passionate about hearing about another country's story. So it's just really special, and I think everyone should go and visit if they haven't been yet.
So the thing I love the most about Scotland is the fact that we have a lot of diverse food cultures and a lot of craft makers who make amazing things, from the gins that we have, the whiskies that we have amazing world-renowned Aberdeen Angus beef, burgers, and there's always new things coming up, and haggis, and we're the only country that a popular Coke brand is outsold by our lovely famous Iron Brew. So we have amazing food and amazing culture around the food.
So what I love about Scotland is the deep history of weapons and castles, and my favourite place to go anytime I've got a weekend off, is Stirling Castle, because it's the best castle in Scotland and I don't hear any other arguments.
So why do I love Scotland so much? I think what I love about Scotland most is the people. That hardy, feisty, prepared to work really hard side to us, which is why I'm sure there's so many Scottish inventors and entrepreneurs. I think we're a really creative people and we don't like to give up. I also really love that self-deprecating sense of humour. We don't take ourselves too seriously north of the border, and Billy Connolly probably sums it up quite nicely. The other thing I absolutely love about our beautiful country is the landscape, those wide open spaces, the variety. I can sit here at ScotlandShop HQ in Duns and then I can drive up to the shop in Edinburgh over heather-covered hills through the Lammermuirs, and it's not that far, but the mixture of kind of countryside and colour is just amazing. Then you arrive in a city full of old tenements and modern living and history all mashed in together. It just never gets old. I love Scotland.
My favourite thing about Scotland is the beaches. They're so lovely to go for a walk on both a winter's day and a summer day. I also love a walk around St Abbs, which is a local seaside town.
One of the things I love the most about Scotland are all the legends, myths and stories that are found from the top to the bottom. So I love things like the Kelpies, the Selkies and all the fairies that you can find throughout Scottish history.
So many different examples of why we love Scotland. No one gets to join the tartan team if they don't have a genuine love for Scotland and are full of stories, which you have no doubt spotted if you ever speak to the customer service team or visit our Edinburgh shop.
We started our On the Sofa series when the pandemic began almost 2 years ago, so we could keep speaking to our customers regardless of being locked down, and over those 2 years we have chatted to so many amazing people with ancestry stories, love stories and tales of Scottish bloodlines rediscovered. We've taken a look back at some of the wonderful things they had to say about Scotland.
So what do you think is so special about Edinburgh then? I know that you take your guests all over Scotland, but as a city, what do you think is very special? Why do we get so many people to Edinburgh?
It must be the castle, Edinburgh Castle must be a big pull for visitors, but when you live here, when people really get to know it or read about it, it's that very unique city with Old Town and New Town sitting side by side. Of course, Newtown being the 18th century, so it's still pretty old. So that juxtaposition of this amazing old area, which is still pretty intact actually. It's always, you know, it makes me smile when I hear people from across Scotland saying that Edinburgh is such a beautiful city. So when people in your own countries say that the capital city is very beautiful, that's quite a thing. So it's that history of that's still there to see. Thankfully, it was not there was no damage done during any of the Great War, the World Wars, you know. So everything's still kind of pretty much in place. So I think that's what must draw people in. The Scots, of course, famously loved the world over anyway. So Edinburgh certainly is almost like a sort of jewel in the crown there, you know. So yeah, it's Old Town, New Town, very accessible, easy to get around, and friendly people. Let's not forget that.
Yeah.
Yes.
I love Edinburgh because you can walk everywhere.
Yes.
I feel like I can go to a lot of very different places and all just on foot, so it makes it quite a tourist friendly.
It's a very walkable city, that's for sure.
Yeah.
It's a little bit hilly, but other than that, it's a very walkable city. Yeah.
So where's your favourite place then in Edinburgh? What would you be your secret?
Well, if you want to really hone in on certain areas of Edinburgh, I mean, I do love the Old Town in general. I've got a love for the area around about George IV Bridge. You know, I just love the two libraries that are up there. You can then sort of just bank off onto Victoria Street, or continue on down to, you know, just around the university or Greyfriars. So I do just I love that junction where you know, George IV Bridge kind of comes off of the Royal Mile, and so that area up there, I do like it up there, and Stockbridge in the New Town. We still do a lot of socialising there.
Yes.
good for lunch
Yes.
or supper.
Yes.
So, Alan, can you tell us your very romantic story about how you came to be in Florida?
Yes, and thank you for inviting me. It's a pleasure to be here. The story goes way back to 1969 when I used to travel to school with a neighbor of mine. And the neighbor, her name is Daisy, she had a family who had emigrated to the United States. The family came to visit, and I was introduced to Daisy's nieces, Anne and Joan. And Joan and I were a year apart, but we became extremely good pen pals for probably 2 to 3 years to begin with. And then Joan came back in 1971-72, and I took the plunge and asked her mum if I could take her out on a date. So we both had our first date walking up Arthur's Seat, and we had a very romantic lunch in the Woolworths Cafe on Princess Street. Fast forward then to 1976, and that was the last time I saw Joan, just before I got married. And we didn't really have any communication until the year 2000, when Joan was visiting United States, back to Scotland to visit an aunt, and she looked me up while she was coming over, and I could let Joan talk about that a little bit. But Joan said that she looked myself up, and she also looked up a long-lost uncle. So if she didn't reach or find me, at least she would have found another member of her family. But we got together, and I came over here on a couple of visits. And then in March of 2001, I decided to come over here and try my luck at setting up a life in America. And just by coincidence, good fortune, Joan was living in Dunedin at the time. And Dunedin is a very Scottish community. So Joan and I have been involved for probably the best part now about 13, 14 years in the Scottish side of the social life in Dunedin. Dunedin was first founded by Scots back in 1882. Two Scotsmen started the first post office. And then in 1957, when the middle school was built, someone suggested that they should have piping lessons at the school. And they applied to an organisation in Dundee for a set of bagpipes. And the set of bagpipes were the onset of what is now a very large piping programme within Dunedin. There's a large Highland dance programme, and the Scottish American Society, which I'm president of this year, has been going now for about 40, I think this is our 40th anniversary. So a very Scottish community, and just by luck, Joan happened to be living here. So that's kind of how we got here, and a little background about the Scottish heritage within Dunedin.
Yeah, absolutely. So,
and so what was it in particular that drew you to Scotland then?
It was actually a bit of a thing that happened by chance. I wanted to study abroad for my master's degree and wanted to study somewhere in an English-speaking country, or at least where courses would be held in English. At the same time, in Austria, education is much, much cheaper than it is in the UK. And so it had to be somewhere where I could somehow afford university fees, which put my first kind of priority, which was Canada, really out of the picture. So I ended up in Scotland. I was always fascinated with Scotland. I had just never really visited before. I had this image in my head of green hills and very much what Scotland looks like, you know, mountains and the sea and animals and wildlife and lovely people and small towns. I had this in my head. I just never thought to actually visit. I don't know why. And then when I got accepted at Glasgow University, I was just over the moon and really, really looked forward to moving to Glasgow, even though I thought it would only be a year. And now it's 8 years later almost, and I'm still here.
Yeah. Oh, you must have liked it then.
Yes, definitely.
In a few weeks' time, Annie and Jenny from the Stories of Scotland podcast will be joining us on the sofa to share Scottish romantic tales told throughout history, which has gotten us so excited, so we are now going to share a few love stories as told by our customers. After all, it's nice to share the love. Our first story is from Stephanie Kilger, who says, William and I reconnected at age 38 after not seeing each other for 19 years. We had gone to high school together, but gone our separate ways after graduation. William moved to Germany and I stayed in America, but our mothers were friends. When he found out I had gotten divorced, he reached out and said he was coming to California on vacation with his children and wanted to catch up. We had such a good time talking and visiting, and he asked me if I planned on going to Europe anytime soon. I told him I had a trip to Scotland planned in 4 months and we arranged to meet up. In the meantime, we texted and talked all the time, so by the time we met up in Edinburgh for the weekend, we had already developed feelings for each other and decided that we wanted to try a long-distance relationship. We had 4 dates that weekend in Edinburgh, and it cemented our whole relationship. For a year after that, we'd meet up in Europe or America every 6 weeks until he moved to California. Now we're planning on getting married in Edinburgh, hopefully this fall, if COVID allows us to travel to the UK. We also hope to settle in Edinburgh in the next few years, as I'm a UK citizen and we love Scotland. How sweet. That's very nice.
Our next love story is from Katie McIntyre. Despite working one floor apart and sharing several colleagues, acquaintances and friends, it took the magic of the internet for us to meet. Luckily, I didn't judge Ben by his initial cocktail order on our first date. It came in a ceramic pineapple with a tiny umbrella. And Ben wasn't scared off by my intense Disney passion. Even my fur babies, Chloe and Harper, notorious for not liking new people, fell in love with Ben right away. Being from Scotland, I've always wanted to get married at home, so as soon as we got engaged, we made the plans to get married at the church where my parents were married. Both my sister and I were christened and my sister got married there too. We've planned this wedding from a distance, but we can't wait to finally get back to Scotland, continue our yearly trips there, and to see all of my family.
Oh, that's lovely as well.
I like when we have little family ties to like churches.
Yeah, me too. So now we have a story from Emily Gilbert about her romantic time in Glasgow. She said, I arrived in Glasgow from Canada in late September to begin an exchange year abroad. On one of my first nights in Glasgow, I went out for drinks with my new flatmates. One of them struck up a conversation with a man at the bar, and once the hours turned late and the bar closed, dispelling its patrons out onto the street, I neither wanted to abandon her without warning nor cut her conversation short. So I waited a few feet away, just outside, and started talking to a guy who was, coincidentally, waiting for his friend who was chatting with mine. My friend never saw the man she was speaking with that night again, but the guy that I started talking to, by sheer chance on a night out in Glasgow, is now my husband. Scotland has become a second home to me, going back and forth between there and Canada as much as we could over the years that would follow. Spending time with his family at their farm in Kinross, exploring the Highlands and visiting friends in Glasgow. Months before the pandemic changed the world, we celebrated our wedding at Loch Lomond, bringing together friends and family from both sides of the pond, and teaching the Canadians how much fun a ceilidh is.
Can't disagree.
It was a beautiful day in late September, 12 years to the week we met by sheer chance outside a Glasgow pub. Oh, that's very sweet, isn't it? Well, thank you so much for joining us today. Now it's your turn. What do you love most about Scotland? Or do you have a romantic love story set in Scotland to share? Let us know in the comments. And tune in into next week's episode of On the Sofa when we will be celebrating our Clan of the Month, Clan Duncan.